performance. Thank you. Excellent. And yeah, welcome to those that haven't joined us before, and welcome back, of course, to those that have. Great that you've taken the time to join us. And it's you know, really important session, this one, because for those of you that are familiar with how our programs run, and we're looking obviously at creating companies that are international at birth. And I know that Home Office are always looking, as you progress from startup to innovator, at the, you know, are you starting to export? Are you starting to work in international markets? So this is an important part of the journey of an entrepreneur. So absolutely delighted to have three experts working with us today to tell us their story. And on both sides of the fence. It's interesting actually when you get to know these guys. I mean, they're not only experts and facilitators, they're also practitioners of internationalization and exporting. But nonetheless, we're going to start with the perspective of our own government and exporting, and then hand over to those that are actually doing it to tell their story. So without further ado, let me just share screen. So our first speaker is Simon Bedford, International Trade Adviser for Department for International Trade. So I mean, I shouldn't be saying this because the world has moved on, but many of you will have known of UKTI, which was the predecessor name of what is now DIT, the Department for International Trade. So this is the arm of the British government that is geared towards encouraging British companies and indeed British institutions in general to work internationally and to export. Simon works obviously for DIT, but also runs SGB Associates, which is a more in-depth advisory firm focusing on export and with various tools to help exporters. Also a lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, and you can see also his book Exporting Made Easy. So one way or another, I'm sure Simon will be able to find a way to help you to grow your business internationally, and to hear how from DIT's perspective. And it's my pleasure to welcome him this evening and to hand the floor over to Simon. So Simon, thanks very much again.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, I think this is all sounding very joined up actually in terms of your introduction, and I think DIT, the Department for International Trade, we still seem to be the government's best kept secret, which we don't want to be, but that seems to be the reality. So I'm hoping Munir might be able to load the slides up. Thanks, Munir, that's great. So yeah, welcome to tonight's session. So I'll do the introduction, and then Munir and Phil will be presenting their case studies. And so we'll be talking for no more, between the three of us, no more than an hour, and then we'll go into a Q&A session. So Munir, if you can just bring the next slide up. So this is the lineup for tonight. And I say, Faye's already mentioned it, but do think about any questions that come up through the session. We'll take them at the end. Paul's going to do the Q&A session, but put your questions in the chat function. So who are we? I say the best kept secret. For anyone who goes back as long as I do, as Paul said, we were UK Trade and Investment. Before that, we were the British Overseas Trade Board. So we've been various things. It was after the Brexit referendum, actually, we became a government department. And our role in life is to make UK companies more successful in international business. So we haven't got a hidden agenda. We would like every UK company to be exporting, and anyone that's registering a UK company can get our full support. You can see there that we're in 117 separate countries, and we're in nearly 200 locations around the world, which is on the next map. So anywhere that's coloured in blue on the map of the countries we're in, and difficult to read, but any dot on the map is where we have a British embassy, a high commission, a consulate, a British trade office, and all the commercial staff work for us. Or more correctly, they really work for you if you want them to. They're out there to support British business, and they're our eyes and ears on the ground. So sort of kicking things off, really, obviously, many of us are very passionate about exporting. I left university not knowing what to do, went to work for a large manufacturing company, and they put me in the export department. So I've never done anything else in my career. But I think when we're talking to companies about, well, why should you get into international business? Why should you start exporting products and services? I think a couple of slides here. So the first one, what percentage of world GDP does the UK represent? So if you'd like to think about that for a minute, you know, is it 5%, 10%, 15%? Most of the export economists in the world think it's about 3.5%. So, you know, if you're not exporting, really you're missing out on over, you know, 96% of world opportunities. And next slide, Munir. Equally, yeah, if we're thinking about how much of, yeah, but that's world GDP there, so $80 billion. But moving on to the next slide. Yeah, what percentage of worldwide consumers does the UK represent? And we bring up the next slide, Munir. Yeah, of that 7.8 billion worldwide consumers, we're about 0.85%. So, you know, and if you've got an online business, for example, all these consumers are available to you. So if you're just focusing on the UK, you're just missing out on so many opportunities. But yeah, how do we define exporting then? Next slide, Munir. Yes, I mean, it's just going to bring in these 8 examples. I think an awful lot of companies out there, particularly those who sell services overseas, don't even realise they're exporting. So if we take some of these examples, and you might like if we were meeting in person, we'd probably do this as a quiz. Is it import? Is it export? Or is it something else? So a company specialising in teacher recruitment for overseas schools receives an order via an intermediary in Manchester, a subject very close to Munir's heart. So what the bankers would probably say is follow the money. Think about where the money's coming from. And if it's money coming from outside the UK into the UK, then it's obviously helping our GDP. So the first example is probably not export. But a Yorkshire food and drink company receives a contract from Ireland, delivery has been made to Belfast. Well, really depends on where the payment's coming from, because delivery is going to Belfast, but if you're being paid from the Irish Republic, so that's a bit of, is it something else? University of York runs a summer school for overseas students, so they're bringing in income from overseas. A US company retained a Sheffield marketing company to manage their brand and PR in the UK. Again, we're getting the dollars coming from the US. A Bradford IT specialist offers online training modules that can be accessed worldwide. Many companies are doing this type of thing, and if the money is being paid from overseas, you know, this is an export of a service. A Leeds company, I actually met a company like this in the Queen's Hotel in Leeds. A company was set up, they were manufacturing sofas in Poland and selling them all around Europe. Now, some of them didn't even touch the UK, but if this is a UK registered company and they're, you know, paying corporation tax in the UK, they're accepting the revenues coming into the UK, we'd certainly call that export, and that would be a company we would be helping. An Italian designer sends a collection of handbags to London Fashion Week with the intention of selling them at the end of the show. That's probably import, isn't it? Because she sent her handbags over here, but she doesn't want to take them back to Italy. So that's probably an example of importing. And the last one, an IP lawyer in Leeds receives a contract from a US company to register patents and trademarks in the UK. Again, if the dollars are coming in from the US, that's another good example of an export of services. So just to repeat, really, many companies don't even realize they're getting into exporting. And as we often say, a lot of companies start exporting, start international trade by accident, but that's fine. But we want to be helping those businesses. So talking a bit about benefits and barriers then. So typically this would be the sort of exercise we do on 2 flip charts if we were meeting face to face and people would get into a group and put up what they think are all the benefits. So certainly increasing turnover, increasing income for the business, spreading risk. I mean, we think about what's happened over the last few years, but if we go back to the banking crisis of 2009, we know companies that were thinking about export hadn't gone into it yet, who were no longer with us because they relied totally on business from the UK. So a nice spread of business across the world is a very healthy position to be in. Improves profitability, attracts new clients, helps to retain existing clients if your clients are heading overseas as well. So if you're supporting them on the ground. Enhancing a reputation, I think if you have a business and you start talking to some potential clients and you can say, yes, we're very strong in the UK, but we're also in Dubai, we're in Singapore, we're in the US, it gives your potential clients a nice warm feeling about actually you must be a great company because so many people seem to be interested in your products and your services. Helps to improve client satisfaction and delight. I think particularly because you're bringing more ideas to the table because you've been exposed to more markets around the world. Great for staff development and great for enhancing staff satisfaction. You know, far more interesting to be on a WhatsApp call, a video conference call from a company in China rather than a company in Croydon. Nothing against Croydon, but you know, it's just more exciting. And the one thing when we're doing this as a flip chart exercise, the one thing that people don't often put down, perhaps they're a bit embarrassed about it, but you know what? It's fun. We're not doing much traveling at the moment, but personally, and I'm sure a lot of you are the same, I'm on Teams or Zoom calls around the world from everywhere from Latin America to Brazil and across to Australia. So, you know, this is fun and we will be back to traveling again and it really broadens your horizons. But there are some barriers out there. And probably, again, if we were doing this sort of flip chart exercise, number one that goes on the list of what people are concerned about, what people see as potential risk is payments, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. Maybe cash flow if payments are coming in slowly. This whole area of what people perceive as red tape, legislation, what documents do we need? Language and culture, you know, we'll probably know whether we need to be speaking Spanish, Italian, Chinese, Arabic, but then culture, you know, we all sort of know about culture, but we're worried about getting it wrong because we only have one opportunity to make a good first impression. Currency, very important, you know, are we going to be selling in US dollars, in euros, in yen? And if we are, you know, does that present a currency risk? And the one I missed out, I'll come back to, is time. And it's not so much time zones, but our most valuable resource is our time, you know. So, yeah, how do we spread ourselves in the most efficient way to get the best outcome from our efforts, if you like? But my personal view about some of these potential risks or potential barriers is that they are perceived risks, if you like, because my view, talking to companies, would be you drive yourself forward, you concentrate on your business, and we as part of your network at DIT and our partners will put this network of support organisations around you. So next slide, Munir. Yeah, and we brought up payment as the one that would come up first on any list of what people worried about. So a quick exercise we can do together. You can write down what you think if you wish. So looking at that list of countries, which ones in your opinion would run the risk of not paying us at all or paying us late, you know, taking some time to pay us, so that might present us with a cash flow issue? So it's a bit of a perception exercise. You'll probably have from that list 2 or 3 markets that you'd put up there as the ones that you think would present the most risk. but I'll run through them with you quickly if we were doing this as a real practical exercise. Nigeria might seem a risky country. Even the Nigerians might realize that because they talk to so many business people, they might well be paying on letter of credit or paying cash in advance, paying into your bank account in advance. So when you're getting payment in advance, it isn't really a risk. Similar with Saudi Arabia, you know, we might be talking to people again who are going to pay us in advance. Irish Republic, I'll come back to. Iran, very exciting market, lots of opportunities, you know, good size economy, large population. Unfortunately, none of the UK clearing banks will accept proceeds from Iran. So when we get asked about should you do business with Iran, only if you've got a subsidiary in Europe somewhere, because none of the banks will accept money from Iran. France, if you ask people in the UK what are usual payment terms in the UK, they probably say 30 days, end of month. Our 30 days in France is 90 days. The French like to deal on 90 days. So don't be surprised if when you're, you know, just going off the call, they say, oh, that is 3 months credit, isn't it? Because that's what they expect. Singapore, yeah, shouldn't generalize too much, but very professional business people. There are many countries in the world like that. So we'll probably do our credit checks, but we're more relaxed about it. Iraq, about 2 years ago, we had our ambassador over from Baghdad with some of his commercial staff. And quite clearly, people in quite a big audience were worried about payments. Someone from the audience put his hand up and he said, I've been doing business from Iraq for many years. I get paid out of Jordan. I get paid in advance. What isn't there to like about that? Germany, good country to do business with, but legally, the Germans, if they pay you early, can legally apply for a small discount. So there's things like that you just have to be wary about. United Arab Emirates, yeah, good place to do business. You'll probably not be dealing with Arabs, you'll probably be dealing with expatriates, maybe British expatriates. USA, yeah, we'll probably be thinking we'll give our USA colleagues, you know, good payment terms, but believe it or not, there are some US companies who still like to pay by check. And if they're paying you a US dollar check, by the time it's bounced between here and the UK and back to the US again, getting the cleared funds might take you several months. And the last one I'll go back to, because this is a practical example for me, the worst payers we had in the world were in the Irish Republic. And that's probably because we gave them the most generous terms because they're lovely people. It's a bit like dealing business in the UK. So when they ask us for credit, we'll assume we ought to give them credit. And then we wonder why it takes such a long time to get the money in. So my view is that probably what you'd view as the most risky countries will probably give you the most generous payment terms. So it's a bit counterintuitive, really. Next slide, Munir. So finishing off on a few slides then, we always get asked, where should we go first? Where should we do business? The World Bank Doing Business Index is always a good read. The last one actually was 2019. It's not been updated since. But if we look at the next slide, probably not too many surprises in terms of the countries that appear in the top 12 as the easiest or easier to do business with. Obviously pleased to see the UK in at number 8. Next slide. But if we look at what Atradius, the risk insurance company, their view of the world, they obviously the countries that they colour in green are the least risky. The darker the colours, particularly when you go into the light red and the dark red, are the countries, if you were asking an organisation like Atradius to give you commercial risk insurance, they'd be very hesitant about the darker coloured countries. So that gives you a bit of an idea about what a risk insurer is thinking about world economies. And just a little bit about our support then, I'd encourage everyone to have a look at great.gov.uk because that's our portal. And you can see there's details there about advice, overseas markets and services. On the advice section, Yeah, there's actually, I couldn't get them all on the screen. There are actually 9 icons you can go into to get advice about creating an export plan, choosing your route to market. If we look at the next slide, yeah, we've got 109 countries on there, from Algeria through to Zimbabwe. Information that our embassies and high commissions have put on there about which sectors they regard to be important and what are the first steps in doing business in those countries. And then services, we keep this constantly updated. And if you're looking about finding online marketplaces for doing e-commerce or finding export opportunities, there's information there, and we keep it, as I say, regularly updated. And if any of you want to use this learning resource, which we put on the homepage now, you can do your own little tutorial, if you like, about learning to export, where to export to, and how to make an export plan. This has been updated very, very recently. And then what next then? So if anyone is on the start of their export journey, I would strongly recommend the Export Academy that we launched at the beginning of this year. It's 9 one-hour modules. It's totally free of charge. It's run by DIT. One of the icons that was on the service section is about markets and sectors. We've run so many events this year that if you go onto that link, it tells you what's coming up, but it equally has recordings of everything that we've developed already. So you can actually go into the search bar and say, you know, I'm interested in this particular sector or this particular country, and it will tell you either what's coming or what you've missed, but you can see the recording. And anyone interested in doing e-commerce, interested in online marketplaces, I said there's a special section there, and all the marketplaces around the world where we've signed MOUs, memorandums of understanding. So a lot of good information and support there. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to pass over to our first case study company. So I'm going to pass over to Munir now. I've known Munir for many years. We work closely together. In theory, I'm the trade advisor for Munir's company, M2R Education. And I was thinking about Munir before we started off, actually. And it was something during the Olympics that Chris Boardman said just after Jason Kenny had done that unbelievable gold medal ride in the Kirin, because there was a slight gap when he was at the front and he used it to his advantage. And what Chris Boardman said afterwards is that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And when I heard that, I thought of Munir, because Munir is always very light on his feet. He's always looking for the next opportunity. And I think Munir knows more commercial stuff for DIT around the world than I do. So over to you, Munir.
Well, that's an introduction and a half. So thank you very much. Right. Okay. Well, as Simon mentioned, my name is Munir Mamujee, and I'm the director of M2R Education. And I'm going to talk to you about what we've done in the past 18 months to combat the commercial effects of COVID-19 on my business, and how we've overcome numerous challenges and managed, through international business development, DIT and partner support, and a huge amount of digital transformation, to go from a successful international recruitment company to a global online education resource and provider. So first of all, I'm just going to give you a bit of an update, just about an overview of us. So my company is a multi-award winning company based in Wakefield, West Yorkshire, not too far from Bradford University. We are Department for International Trade Export Champions, and have so far exported our services to over 40 countries. We offer a range of online and offline services to the education sector, including recruitment, English language courses, and private tutoring. Now, prior to February 2020, our one and only service was education recruitment. working with international schools, English language and further education colleges, universities, and private edtech companies who needed our help to provide them with qualified staff. Through affiliations with British Schools Middle East, Council of British International Schools, we've been able to attend global education conferences, meeting current and potential clients, and building all those important business relationships. And things were going quite nicely with exciting plans, loads of international trips to look forward to, and another profitable year. And then, as we know, in early 2020, everything changed. So how did we make sure as a business that we were resilient, and how did we make sure that we didn't implode? So I'll just give you a couple of scenarios so you understand where I'm coming from. So back in the distant days of February 2020, I was embarking on my latest and unfortunately last business trip, this time to Abu Dhabi for an education conference. A great event, supposed to be the highlight of our Q1 international business development strategy. The conference unfortunately never happened due to COVID-19. I ended up in a lockdown situation in the hotel for 5 days, and it's got to be one of the most surreal and bizarre experiences ever, and one I thought I would never, ever repeat. Now, at this point, 99% of our work involved people physically moving around the world. So we relied on global mobilization and people wanting and having the ability to travel. Without travel, I had no business, no staff, nothing. So as a business owner, I initially went through the usual emotion that we've all been through, what on earth are we going to do? So I had two choices. I either shut up shop or we fight. So I decided to fight. So on Tuesday, March the 17th, remember it well, I packed up the office and the team and we went our separate ways. I've never worked from home. I didn't think I liked working from home. Too many distractions. I'm just not designed that way, or so I thought. I also didn't know how the team would cope, and working remotely when for so many years we've existed in a totally collaborative environment. My worry was that being forced to work from home would be totally demotivating and absolutely disastrous. So what we're going to do? We'd lost all our clients overnight. No one was going anywhere. We had no revenue coming in and no forecast revenue either. So quite simply, we had to flip the business and began offering purely online services. So the first plan of attack was to start supplying teaching staff to online English language companies. This was big business and we needed to make rapid inroads into the market. So huge new business drive began, both for clients and also for individuals who were stuck at home and needed work. So I used DIT's international network of commercial officers that Simon alluded to, who helped to introduce me to potential clients. I attended hundreds of webinars, virtual trade missions, because remember, no one was going anywhere, online conferences, you name it, we did it, all from home. From there, we began to transition into other complementary markets, using our current skills and not trying to reinvent the wheel. In my opinion, it's not the time to start looking at a whole new business when there's so many online opportunities to exploit. So initially, I looked at other services that we could offer that could help our online candidate base and decided to forge a partnership with a teacher training company, therefore allowing us to offer TEFL courses, teaching English as a foreign language courses, for those who were considering a new career in online teaching. Bear in mind, this is something we've never done before. And this is how we met TEFL UK, and you're going to hear from Director Phil, who I now class as a good friend of mine, after me. From there, I then began looking at developing our own online tutoring services. So I built from scratch 2 new websites, of which one you can see on the screen here, and launched another 2 revenue streams. This time, online tutoring for primary and secondary school students across all subjects, and online English language tutoring for adults across the globe. Now, as a recruitment company, we had the talent already there. It was just a matter of using it in a different way. So as I said, I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel. Just use the skills and experience gained from over 20 years working in this sector. From there, I looked at offering self-study courses, again, online. We launched a range of app and online-based English language courses to help learners improve their English skills for work, study, relocation, or play. From here, I began then to develop a global partner network to allow us to get in front of potential customers around the world without having the ability to travel. So this is our 2020-2021. As I'm sure you can appreciate, the last 18 months for me, and I'm sure for you and a lot of people listening as well, has felt like 10 minutes and 10 years all at the same time. I was recently interviewed for an award we won, and the interviewer, when I went through everything we'd done, she thought I was talking about what we'd done in the last 5 years, not with what we'd done in the last 18 months. It has to be the most challenging, the most stressful period for me as a business owner and my supportive team as well. It could have been so easy just to shut the doors and go do something else, but there's just no way we were going to do that. So it's all well and good, you know, talking about what we've done, but what we actually achieved, was it worth it? You know, it's got to pay dividends, because otherwise everything we've done has just been complete and utter waste of time. So is it working? Yeah, it is. We've gone from 1 revenue stream to 5. We've received local, national and international praise for our efforts. We've developed a brand new partner network. We've become more business resilient, and we're not afraid to take calculated but still risks and meet challenges head on. It's not been easy. We're not out of the woods, but we are moving forward with a head of steam that I never ever thought was possible back in 2020. So for us, what's our next steps? What are our key strategies moving forward? Well, first of all, we've got to make sure as a company that all that hard work over the past 18 months will not be in vain. We've worked our backsides off to build new business, and we've got to continue these. We've got to allow them to grow. We've proved that they can be profitable and offer value to an international community. I also know that international teacher recruitment is going to come back, and it's going to come back very, very strongly. So we've got to be ready. However, this time we are going to be ready with additional products and services to discuss with our clients. So before I close, these are my top tips for generating international business and becoming business resilient. So it's okay to panic and wonder what on earth are you going to do. However, look for new opportunities. They are out there. Use your network that you've built either over the months, weeks, years, it doesn't matter. How can they help you achieve your new goals? Make sure your team is behind you. Keep them informed. Make sure they understand the decisions that are being made. Listen to what they say too. And as everything settles down, don't throw away all your hard work and go back to what you were doing before. You've got this far, you've just got to keep going. And that's what I tell myself every single day. And as our old Prime Minister Winston Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I can't stand by that now. So I could go on. I could talk for hours about what we've done in the last 18 months. We've done so much. If anybody wants to speak to me afterwards, discuss our services, what we do, want free trials, anything, here's my LinkedIn details, here's my WhatsApp details, my mobile number and my email. Also, if anyone's interested, Phil and I, who you get mentioned, you'll hear from next, also did our own fireside chat going into more detail about what we've done in the last 18 months and what it's meant for us. If you want to watch that, let me know and I'll share the YouTube link as well. So before I hand over to Phil from TEFL UK, I just want to say a very big thank you to Faye and the rest of the Bradford University team for arranging this masterclass and Simon from DIT for his continued support. Before I go, I had to put this on the screen because I think it resonates. So I'm now going to stop this share, and considering I'm looking after all these slides and everything, I'm now going to endeavour to hand over to Phil.
Right, thanks very much, Munir, for that. So yeah, it's great to listen to your story, and I think, to be honest with you, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be quite similar to what Munir said and what he's been through with his company. So I'm the company director at TEFL UK. I've spent 20 years in the education sector, firstly in teaching and then later recruitment and training. So it's really great to know that so many of you are interested in the entrepreneur visa program at Bradford. It's a program that's really close to my heart, having been an entrepreneur myself for many years. So again, a similar theme to Munir, I want to talk about our business, how we've had to adapt to the challenges of the pandemic. We've had challenges before in our business, but nothing like with COVID. It's something that we really couldn't have planned for, and it certainly forced us to rethink our business model. I know that it's quite a daunting time to be starting a new business, but hopefully from today's talk, there'll be a few encouraging points for you to take home, from this session. So in early 2020, our business was very much based on classrooms. It was based on international travel. It was based on in-person meetings. So as you can imagine, there's been a lot of changes. So let's have a look at the presentation today. Munir, if you can just put up the agenda, that's great. So yeah, we'll start with an introduction, talk about what we do as a company, where we were pre-COVID, how COVID would change our business model. So I'll discuss some key areas that we needed to address in order to keep moving forward. A change to our way of working, the changes that we implemented, what we learned from the pandemic, and how we'd need to adapt our business. Also, we'll look at some success stories, so some of the good things that have come out of these changes, what's next for our business, and then just some tips and advice. So obviously creating, working within a pandemic situation is not a usual situation. But hopefully some of what I'll be talking to you about today is going to help to prepare your business and help you kind of get through challenging situations and be a little bit more business resilient, hopefully. Okay, next slide, please, Munir. So just to give you a little bit of information about what we do as a business. So we provide training in TEFL, which stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language courses. So we offer classroom, online and blended learning courses. We've trained over 50,000 students in TEFL since 2013. Pre-COVID, we were offering a lot of in-class training around the Northwest UK. So it would typically be weekend courses, which was kind of like a boot camp in training. We also provide TEFL jobs for our teaching network and for people who are looking to work internationally. Lots of in-country teacher recruitment focused on the Asia-Pacific regions, focused on South America. And we worked with a lot of ministries of education in hiring teachers for some big ELT recruitment projects. So really the kind of offer was based on, using our knowledge to train people in a classroom setting to help them to achieve the certification that they needed then to go on and teach internationally. And to use our network of global jobs, to offer people routes and pathways into international employment. So that was our operation pre-COVID. And then, as you can imagine, the operation post, or, hopefully towards the end of COVID is not the same as it was. So let's just check. So that the business activity, as you can see, we did have a lot of growth between 2014 and 2019, and the key revenue drivers behind that growth were international recruitment and the training, in-class training. So, two things that relied on people moving around, and they relied on people getting together in a classroom environment so that they could do the training. So our vision at the time was to keep adding more countries, keep working on the international side of things, adding more projects and programs and expanding into new markets like the US and Australia. And just to give you a few stats, which I should have put in the presentation, so I didn't, unfortunately, but I'll read them out to you. In 2019, there were over 250,000 teachers working abroad. Over 40,000 schools were hiring teachers in 2019. And there were over 100,000 teaching positions available internationally. So although TEFL is quite a niche market, you can see the size of the market and the opportunities that were seemingly available. So that means that, you know, everything seemed to be a clear roadmap forward, and a clear kind of pathway to growth, which we obviously needed to change after the COVID pandemic hit. So if we can go on to the next slide, Munir. That's great. Okay. So yeah, I think that the first thing really was to assess the situation. You know, as the same as what Munir was saying, we soon realised that COVID wasn't going to be a short-lived thing. The landscape changed completely, and things, you know, kind of stopped with China was the main area that was initially affected. So they stopped hiring teachers. We kind of thought, well, we've still got other markets, you know, places like Japan and South Korea, and then they kind of stopped hiring. Basically, international travel, as you know, stopped. And the lockdown started, and then our revenue basically just dropped off a cliff. We also had to stop the in-class training because of the limits on gatherings. So it was really, really, really challenging looking back, you know, and I think at the time we needed to balance our hopes that things would start to get back to normal soon with the reality. And the reality was basically our business model was completely unsustainable unless we did something about it very quickly. So some of the questions that this brought up really was, I'll just read them out here. Firstly, how could we continue to be aspirational? How could we continue to grow our business? And how could we replace the revenue which we'd lost, you know, because of the pandemic, which was basically 100% of revenue, really. If we can go on to the next slide, please, Munir. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I think we realised really that the only thing that we could do was just move the whole offer online. So we looked at various aspects of the business, and you know, it was a case of thinking, can we do this online? And the answer was yes, with the majority of it. We moved our training online. We established relationships with online teaching platforms. We also moved our teaching practice sessions online as well, so that, you know, teachers could use their laptop to communicate and teach with students around the world. And what we found was basically that hiring ramped up during this time because of all the online opportunities and the fact that schools were moving their operations online. The demand actually went up, and what was really surprising for us was that the sales went up a lot during the lockdown. So one of the good things that I think was very worthwhile was changing the marketing, to adapt it to the new situation and to use lockdown as a way for people to learn a new skill, and then to kind of get the training behind them, and just to keep the pipeline in place. So instead of being training to international jobs, it was now online training to online jobs. So it wasn't really reinventing the wheel. In our case, it was sticking with what we knew, but just trying to tailor and adapt the product a little bit so that they were still relevant in the new environment. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please, Munir. So yeah, what did we learn, and what hopefully what's going to be useful for you? So I think the first thing is the importance of partnership. So I mean, everybody in our industry was in the same boat. So we found out there was a really strong willingness to collaborate. There was a willingness to develop the existing partnerships that we had, cross-promote, and diversify the product range that we had. So, one of the things as well that we found with this relationship that we established with Munir was that we were able to add more products to our platform, which made our kind of product listings more resilient, and give more variety to our audience. So that was something that was really good. We also built out our affiliate program. We added more resellers, and we just tried to leverage our contacts so that we could support each other through the challenge. And as I said, we realized that any change, it didn't need to be revolutionary change. It was just a case of trying to evolve our strategy, assess what the offer was, try to be dynamic, try to be versatile, and just try to adapt and act quickly, really, to change things. And also the other thing was the importance of diversification. So I think it was great that we could stay within the sector that we know, but just evolve our products to the new normal. You know, again, we've had a lot of experience in this sector, and I think it's always good that you can try to just keep that in mind and keep the overall market situation in mind, and just try to, you know, work your way so that you're staying within the parameters of what you know as well, was something that was helped to make the transition easier for us. Okay, Munir, can we do the next slide, please? Okay, so the success stories and the good things that have come out of this. So firstly, to reset our delivery capabilities, online teaching, online learning, definitely here to stay. So really, I think that this has just accelerated the process of moving our offer online. We've also found that our courses now, because of the fact that they are hosted online, it just gives us so much more accessibility. And it gives us much more chance to reach wider international markets, which is where the DIT come in, and again, tapping into that as a resource to access new markets and promote your products internationally. We've also managed to reduce the costs by moving everything online as well, which is savings that we could pass on to our customers. And the e-learning is something that means that, you know, obviously students can learn at their own pace, again, which is something that is quite an attractive benefit for students. But obviously we can use the technology and leverage the technology to just enhance learning and keep people connected, you know, in different parts of the world. And also, again, with the jobs, you know, the jobs market has kept going. It's not completely shut down. Thankfully, it's gone online. So again, it's just about tapping into where there is demand and just trying to use that for your benefit. In our case, that was really helpful. So Munir, next slide, please. So just a few things. I mean, what's next for our business and our journey? You know, we're trying to keep in mind that it's probably going to be a long while until any meaningful travel, international travel and hiring resumes. So I think really we just need to continue to be creative, continue to be entrepreneurial in combating this, and just try and develop more products online, again, diversify into different types of products, expand our market reach through new partnerships. And also, you know, we're looking to the existing market and how can we penetrate that market more? How can we take more, you know, offer an additional value and benefits to the customers within our market? And obviously, longer term, we're hoping for a return to international hiring. So obviously, just keep an eye on the future, and hopefully things will begin to improve. And then just the final slide is just some tips and advice. Again, I really hope this is going to be helpful for you. Collaboration would be the first one. So we found that partnerships have really increased our resources. It's helped us reach a wider audience, and it's actually helped us to grow our customer base even during COVID. It's also helped us to create some new revenue streams through diversifying our product offerings. Also, not to be too pessimistic, but really planning for the worst case. You know, I think we had to face the fact that our business model was completely unsustainable. So it really kind of focused our minds and helped us to focus on costs. How could we replace that lost revenue? How could we manage any outcomes positively? Be ready to adapt and to reinvent. So again, it wasn't about taking radical steps to adapt our business. It was just about evolving, staying within our marketplace, just trying to, you know, subtly change the product so that they still worked in the new environment. Tapping into the government support as well, local chambers of commerce, growth hubs, peer-to-peer networking, business chats, business breakfasts, things like that, where you can get a lot of good advice, lots of good ideas, and you might just get something that somebody says which sparks off a new direction for your business. Prospecting, you know, keep going with new clients, keep following up, keep trying to identify new sales opportunities, never rest and just think, right, I'm just going to take it easy. You've always got to be trying to look ahead, as I'm sure you've seen from Munir's chat before, and just trying to find new routes to market and new ways to get your products out there. And finally, just to stay positive, I think obviously COVID has been an absolutely huge, problem for international business, but problems that are going to arise all the time. And I think really it's just about trying to manage them, trying to keep an eye on the future, and just make the right decisions with the information that's available for you at the time. So hopefully this has been useful for everybody. Again, if there's anybody wants to chat or ask any further questions, more than welcome to ask. It'd be great to chat with you and find out more about you. And yeah, that's it from me for this stage. So I think I'll hand back to Paul now, who's going to take some Q&A, I think.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much, Munir, as well, and again, Simon. I've noticed some questions coming in, and obviously I've tried to populate the chat box with some rookie questions as well. That if I don't know the answers to, I certainly would have wanted to know the answers to 10, 15, 20 years ago, and some of them I'm still struggling with. So maybe what I would suggest is let's give priority to questions that others have asked. And then we can go on to my questions or indeed any other points that you might wish to cover. So I'm just scrolling through. What are the implications of hiring staff in an overseas location for work and contracts in the UK and worldwide? Feels like in scope for DIT for support. So this is from Kunal Kaka from Vodafone. So yeah. I think for you, Simon, that one, I think.
Yeah, I'd probably like to talk about that in a bit more detail, but I think it's really interesting that we traditionally help UK exporters of products or services. But I think we're far more aware now, particularly for certain countries in the world, that setting up some sort of presence, which may not be very expensive actually, to have a sort of Regis style office where you've got a nameplate, you've got a name and address for your business card, you've got someone picks up the phone when they dial your local number is more and more the way to go. So yeah, we're certainly giving that type of support, and it's important in places like the US where people are going beyond simple exporting. Because to be taken seriously in certain world markets, your customers expect you to have a local address. So yeah, that is something we're more and more doing to help. In fact, we've got a presentation with BDO on the 13th, I think, or was it 23rd? On the 23rd, about doing business in the US, which we'll be discussing. Not just exporting, but setting up locally.
Could I just build on that? How do I get details for the session, Simon? You mentioned on the 23rd. Is that something that Faye or somebody could point me towards?
Yeah, I mean, if you give your details to Faye, she can contact me and I'll email you back with all the details.
Brilliant. Excellent. Happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Let's just have a look down. Perhaps this one's for Munir and Phil. So Agnes is asking, any advice on creating online skills training course?
Phil, based on your EduZoo, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think really what kind of, I'm not sure what course you're interested in doing, but there's definitely places that you can go like Teachable, where you can kind of upload content around whatever topic your course is on. And that there are places as well where you can get some graphics done for your course. So it's just a case of looking online, and maybe video content might be something that would be quite resonant with an audience these days. So it's I think just put together firstly the text and the way that you want to assess the course and look at it from that perspective. But then also if you can add in some videos, some interactive materials as well, which is going to keep the students interested and work with them through the course, and potentially have some, live training as well as part of the course. So there's a few elements that you'd need to consider, but you can definitely try and scaffold that first. And, I'd say just get the content ready and then just build it out from there.
Because like you said, there's also, once it's ready, that there's so many avenues to upload. So I think, as you mentioned, Thinkific, Teachable, LinkedIn Learning is huge as well. If you're then wanting to monetize, again, look at, as we've mentioned, about Thinkific and Teachable, because all of a sudden you can then start putting an e-commerce slant on this. Or you can, embed them into your own website. There's so many different opportunities. Once we know what skills training courses you're looking to do, Phil and I are more than happy to have a chat with you afterwards.
Thanks, Munir. Thanks, Phil. I was just looking up LinkedIn Learning there, so I just wanted to see if I could find a link I could ping out to you guys, but it wasn't as easy to find as Teachable looks amazing. I mean, talk about a blind spot. That looks absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Please, guys, feel free to type in questions, or indeed just to pitch up and turn your microphones off. We're pretty flexible in how we handle these things. Debbie Rimmer, question here. I work in ELT in Spain. One of the issues post-Brexit will be the difficulty recruiting teachers from the UK. Do you feel that the EU market has now been limited because of employment legislation here? So again, maybe that's initially for Munir, and then Phil may wish to comment, and Simon to wrap up as well on Brexit.
Well, I'll be delicate in my response. I think if I just tell you that we don't supply any English language teachers to anywhere in Europe, I think that probably answers your question. The majority, all the teachers that we supply are to the Middle East, Asia. We get people in Europe looking for positions, but we don't get people in the UK looking for positions in Europe to teach English as a foreign language, I should say. So unfortunately, even though I work in teacher recruitment and I've done so for 20 years, our experiences of supplying English language teachers into Europe is extremely limited, extreme. And I think one of the main reasons is, as I think Phil will allude as well, when you get your TEFL, and I am generalising here, people see it as a sense of adventure and want to go as far afield as possible. Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, or they're looking to go out to Latin America. But Phil, have you got anything to add? Because I'm struggling with Europe, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I mean, agree with what you said there, Munir. We've got a few positions in Spain and in Poland, but we've just found that the demand has been a lot less, obviously, for the last 18 months. The programs that we offer in Spain are mainly for recent graduates. So I think they're able to go over on a student visa, which might just change things slightly in terms of how many people they can accommodate and the visa process. But in terms of regular paid jobs in Spain, we don't have too much experience with that country, unfortunately.
And what about how does somebody break into a whole new market? I'd like to sell to Tajikistan or Guatemala. I mean, how do you go about that? How do you actually open up a new market from scratch? And Simon, any comments from you?
This is something we're doing all the time, and I think if I was sitting down with any of the students, any of the startup companies, I think it would be sort of sitting down and saying, well, where do you think there are opportunities for you and your business? Let's come up with a list of 10. But then from that list of 10, let's narrow it down to 2 or 3 where we'll start with. We'll start with them today. We can always look at some more next week or next month. And I've been doing this with the reasonable large company in Sheffield, actually, but they weren't doing anything at all in Latin America. So they started looking at all the big markets, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina. So I said to them, What's the only country in Latin America where English is the local language? Because, you're going to have Spanish speakers. And they didn't know. So I set up a conference call with our trade director in Guyana, which is more Caribbean than it is South American. But, it's about 1 million people, but they've just struck oil offshore. So it's going to be the next Dubai, probably. So, I just got them thinking, well, we can talk to our commercial staff in these big markets, but they were going through all the problems with certification, regulations, getting approvals. And I said, yeah, but you won't need all of that to go to Guyana because it's more like the Caribbean and it's English speaking.
But then surely the sort of the DIT support is just for big companies. I mean, for little entrepreneurs such as the ones in our program that only may have maybe a one-person company or 2 or 3 people working together. Does DIT provide support for those sort of companies as well?
Well, I suppose it depends what they want to do. And I think that's probably, we're, as trade advisors, we're the starting point for them. We're a free resource. We're free consultants, if you like. So I think it's us talking to the companies about what do they really want to do and where do they want to do it. We've got programs, we've got events. I mean, Munir outlined it. We've got so many things going on every day of the week. Even for myself, it's difficult to keep up to date with what's happening. So, I think whether a company's in food and drink or they're in automotive or they're in English language teaching, finding out what it is they want to do, where they want to do it, and then we'll plug them in to the services we have.
I mean, just an answer from my perspective. I mean, I'm not sure there's a formal test for this, but broadly, if you show the commitment that you want to be in that market and you're talking to somebody from DIT, they'll respond to it. If you are in an overseas market and you choose to ask to call in at the embassy or the consulate, then often somebody from that market will have time to see you. So as long as you can communicate that hunger to be in that market, these guys I think are receptive to anybody, small or large. And I think everybody in country likes talking to somebody who's interested in growing opportunities in that country as well. So they're remarkably accessible.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Paul. Much appreciated. I think the other thing we can do, which I'm sure you'll be aware of, but I mean, it's like putting A and B together, because I think we're all a part of this unofficial export club, and I don't want you to make the mistakes I made. So, I would introduce you to someone like Munir, and putting your heads together and trying to come up with some solutions. So, yeah.
Because it's interesting what you say, Paul, about it's the DIT and the commercial teams around the world are very welcoming. They are, as Simon mentioned, I must have contacted over 60 commercial offices in the last 18 months. Most of them I know by first name, and they know me by first name. And it is about he who shouts loudest. So what happens now when a commercial opportunity comes into, to certain posts, I'm the first person that they think of. And I'm not just saying that, it is true. When we were allowed to travel, I always used to go and pop into the embassy. I always used to go and see the commercial officers, because all you're doing is building a relationship. Just because they're in an embassy, it's still a human being. Whether you're going to a business or whether you're going to the British Embassy, they want to hear about what you're doing, and then that's how they'll open doors. I think it's a lot of people that they think it's out of bounds. It's only for the inverted commas important people to go to the embassy. It's not. I run a very small business in Wakefield, and I've been doing this since 2008, traveling around the world with Simon and on my own. And the embassy network and the commercial teams around the world are fantastic. And as Simon also mentioned, sometimes it's the markets that you don't think about are the ones where you get the best opportunities, because no one else has thought about them. So if you contact a commercial officer in a very popular country, they may struggle to come back to you because they've got so many other things that they are doing, VVIP events and this and that. If you contact a commercial team in, let's say, a lesser known country, you're probably going to get a very, very quick and very positive response because you won a few.
Yeah, and we've had that experience with, where we've contacted a DIT office and, within a few days, we've had a list of maybe 10, 15 local training organisations or companies that we can contact who might be open to a partnership. And from that list, we've found that there's been some really good offers and good partnerships that have come from that. So, yeah, as you said, really accessible, really quick to respond and a really good experience. And it's helped us to win a lot of business as well, particularly in the Far East. So it's definitely a good resource. And, it's something that as well, I know there are some services that are chargeable, but a lot of it is free, so you can get in touch with them and they'll give you some good contacts and good potential opportunities at no cost, which is really good as well for a small business.
I mean, certainly my experience is even when it's chargeable, you get some help for free. There's always there's a couple of bones in there, and often those can be enough to get cracking. And then you've got your first contract, and you can afford to pay for the next level of service as well. So yeah, no, I'm sure that's right. I mean, something else that I would just comment on is that if you are working internationally, it's spooky, but if you go on a trade mission, for example, yes, it may be quite a diluted mission and it may be covering a lot of ground, but you also get to know other people who are interested in exporting. And the number of times that I've met customers from the UK through my international activities, and they've got time. They're on planes, they're in bars, and hotel foyers. They actually have got time in a way that they may not have time to see you, even though, and sometimes they're based just down the road as well. But so it does open up. Doing this as well surprisingly opens up opportunities in home markets as well. A question I was going to ask both Munir and Phil. I mean, it's all very well pivoting, and of course you had to from face to face to online. But have you? I couldn't spell it on the typing, but have you sort of cannibalized your own market here? And what's going to happen after COVID? And are two markets going to exist, or are you going to have to go back to face to face?
Munir?
Well, all I was going to say is, I think online is to stay, but I also think face-to-face is also going to come back and is going to come back strongly as well. Whether we move to more of a blended approach, whether, organizations that are now purely online will revert, who's to know? But I think what we have seen is there's been a definite shift, and schools, colleges, universities, private organizations that maybe would have shied away from online learning have now really, really embraced it. So we're working with companies that we used to supply face-to-face in-country staff. We're now supplying them with online staff. And when I talk to them and say, what are your plans? Are you thinking of changing this? Sometimes they say, no, because it's saving us a fortune and we're getting exactly the same level of teaching, same quality, without all the associated costs. So if you look at how much it costs to move someone from A to B, flights, visa, accommodation, medical expenses, medical insurance, etc., they don't have to pay for any of that. But they've still got a fantastic person sitting there. So we'll offer online, we'll offer blended, and we'll offer face-to-face. And we just have to see how the market goes. Let's be honest, nobody's really got an idea because no one even envisaged us being here in the first place.
Yeah, that's it. And I would echo a lot of that. And obviously, depending on how long these restrictions go on for internationally, I mean, we kind of thought, surely it's not going to be longer than 6 months. And here we are, nearly 19 months later, and still there's not really any sign of things changing. So I think our plans in the near-term future is to stay online, keep the offer online, see how the students prefer to learn. If we're finding that the take-up continues to be good, we'll keep the products online. But I think eventually, reverting to some in-class teaching and in-class recruitment alongside the online offer is the hope and the aspiration that we can have both strands working, side by side, which will give us, benefit in different ways. So, yeah, so we're hoping to return to some international recruitment and in-class training as well. But for the time being, I think everything will stay online, and thankfully people seem to be taking to it, and it seems to be very convenient and accessible as well. So that's a really good thing, that I think people have found as an advantage.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Munir. Keep the questions coming in, guys. If there are any questions that you want to ask, anything, don't be shy. I'm going to ask a question. I've just set up a business. I've just come to the UK. I'm on a startup visa. I've managed to get my bank account, and that wasn't easy, getting a business bank account in the UK. Now you're telling me that I should be exporting, but I can't invoice in. Can I invoice in British pounds? How on earth can I now start to work in renminbi? And do I need 200 bank accounts for every currency that I have to transact in? So maybe Simon, could you answer that one for us?
Yeah, sure. I won't go into too much detail because currency is one of my pet subjects. So nothing to stop. I mean, what we'd probably say is think about invoicing in sterling, because then you've got no currency risk. So I don't see any problem invoicing in any currency. It's more a case of how many pounds you'll end up in your bank account when you convert from US dollars, yen, dirham, or any other currency. So you can certainly do that, but start off being safe, maybe invoicing in sterling. But yeah, it might give you some competitive advantage to invoice in the currency of that country, providing it's a hard, freely convertible currency. So providing it's euros, dollars, yen, freely convertible currencies. But then it's not a decision about whether you can do it. It's a decision about when you get paid. If you haven't made any provision, your bank will convert it at the spot rate when the money comes in. So if it comes in tomorrow, they'll convert it at the spot rate. That may not be the most advantageous rate. So you might want to consider doing a forward exchange contract, which is not as complicated as it seems. You simply say to your bank or another financial institution, we will receive $20,000, on the 15th of October, 15th of November, but we'd like you to give us a fixed rate today for some future point. And you and the bank are locked into that. But it might mean you avoid the vagaries of what the exchange rate might be in 1 or 2 months, because if anyone actually knows what's going to happen with exchange rates somewhere down the line, they really should be a foreign exchange dealer and not a business person, because even the banks don't know. They'll give you a calculated view, but no one knows. So I think it's more like hedging your bets, really, and thinking about, are you happy with a spot rate, or do you want to make some contingency for fixing the rate at a future point when that money comes in?
So I think what you're saying really is that we can invoice in, at least to get going, we could invoice in sterling, and other people, when they're paying us, should be able to find a way of paying us in sterling. But in time, there may be ways that we could be more efficient in how we manage our money by using the sort of instruments that you've described.
Yeah, sterling's a good starter, but obviously you're dealing with companies in Europe or companies in the US. They perhaps won't mind if they realize you're a small company, but given a bit of time, it would be more convenient for them if you invoice them in their currency. But I say, you don't have to take any exchange risk. There are things you can do. You just need to talk to your bank or another financial institution about it.
Thank you. That's really helpful. That gives me some confidence to get going. I mean, it's obviously easy that we're all based in the UK in the main, speaking English, whether we are originally from the UK or not. But are there any issues with assuming that English is our international language? Should we be using translation software when we're writing to people? So should we translate into Tajik, or should we, use English? Any thoughts as to whether translation software plays a part in our communications internationally?
I don't know, Munir or Phil, if you've ever come across this issue.
Not to be honest, no. I mean, sometimes we have had instances of using Google Translate and things, but I don't know how accurate that is. So we've always erred on the side of caution and just stuck to English only. But I think luckily for our marketplace, it does tend to be English schools, English language centres, where obviously they're looking for English teachers. So that's been helpful for us. But yeah, apart from the contracts where we've had those translated often into Chinese by a translation company, things like that we would get translated. But just day-to-day communications and emails, phone calls, we've always been okay using English. That's always been okay for us.
Yeah, same here as well. We've always communicated in English. I did explore Arabic and start getting my business cards translated into Arabic. I translated our website into Arabic. But eventually, the people who I was dealing with just said to me, "Look, you're a British company. We actually like the fact that everything's in English. We want you to be a British company. Don't be something that you're not." So, okay. And this was people in the Middle East telling me this. So I thought I was doing the right thing. I've also found that if I've attempted to write an email or had it translated into another language, they then assume that you are fluent, which can cause more problems than it's worth. And so the only one recently I've had is we did a pitch to a company in Bolivia, Peru, sorry, and they wanted it done in Spanish. Well, I don't speak Spanish, so I spoke to the commercial officer in Lima and just said to him, "Look, can you help me?" So he became my translator. So I did that way. So there are ways and means around it, but as Phil said, 99.9% of the time it's in English, and when we get contracts, they tend to be bilingual contracts as well.
The other thing I'd say is, and there was a question higher up, Paul, I don't know if it's one of yours, but I mean, as you would grow your international business, your exports, you would be wanting to consider, are you going to continue doing everything directly, or are you going to try and appoint a local partner like a commercial agent? And if you appoint a commercial agent, they're not only your eyes and ears on the ground, you would appoint someone who's multilingual, who at least spoke your English and the other language. So you would get round that because they would not only be helping you with the language, they'd be helping you with the culture and the contacts as well.
And Simon, how would I go about recruiting my local agent, particularly in a market that I've never been to before?
Well, I'm sure Munir's got a view on this, but more and more people are using social media, particularly LinkedIn, to find potential partners. But I think, doing everything, the sort of thing that Munir does or Phil's done, going on these virtual missions, pairing up with people. We've had some EdTech events this year, we've had some quite small educational technology companies, but we've introduced them to people in Dubai. We just had the week before last a webinar with Malaysia. We've got one coming up with Latin America. So I think it's putting yourself out there. And as Munir said, our commercial staff can help, maybe not with the exact person you want, but giving you some idea of associations you could go to, trade bodies.
And any additional comments, Munir?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we've now got, including Phil, we've now got, we're building our portfolio of partners and agents, and we've got them. Let's look at the last 18 months. We've not been able to go anywhere through virtual conferences, exhibitions, as in online, events and exhibitions, where there are specific ones for the education sector where we can actually meet education agents. So whether that's student recruitment agents, English language agents, and they are looking to do business with organisations like us. So whatever sector you're in, there will be similar online events. You've just got to go and find out where they are, invest some time and some money, mean, I did one about 3 months ago, which is again for the education sector. And I did 65 meetings in 3 days, starting at 7 in the morning and finishing at midnight for 3 days. I didn't know my name by the end of it, but it was absolutely brilliant. But the amount of people that will go, oh, I won't do that. Well, that's fine, but then you're not going to, you have to be in it to win it. So, there are so many ways of looking for agents. I mean, how did we find Phil? Just to give you a very quick, I said to my team, we need to plug the gap. We need to find an English language training company. So I gave parameters. Said I want one in the north of England, because we're from Yorkshire. I want someone who's got a good reputation and someone, find me one. So they came up with TEFL UK. We spoke to Phil, and the rest is history. So you've got to put yourself out there. And as Simon mentioned, LinkedIn is great. I am looking for an agent in country X to help me with Y. And then just speak to them.
Yeah, definitely agree. And just the exporting opportunities that you can get through the DIT as well, signing up for the newsletters, things like that in your sector. There's always opportunities coming through every day. You get a list of 20 or 30 new opportunities. Some of them can be really relevant, or they can open the door to something else. So just signing up for as much business intelligence as you can has been really helpful for us, and just gives you an overview of the market and what's going on. So that's also been really useful. I
mean, the only other thing I would say is don't underestimate the power of this network. I'm not advocating, particularly after what Munir's just said, a lazy approach. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to be in one of 40 countries, I might just drop Munir a note and say, look, is there somebody that you might recommend? Now, for Munir, all he needs to do is to forward to his contact. Can you help with this? Copy the originator. It's probably about 5 seconds of his time. And he's earned a favor with somebody else in his network who potentially then might be referring on. So there's a degree of general professional support that goes on in with particularly amongst entrepreneurs. So just network, and you might be surprised that he may already be in Guatemala. I suspect he might be. So and this is how it works. So it's not as difficult as it might seem, really, just to make that first step. I noticed Gowrie. I'm hoping you're still with us. I don't know whether you inadvertently hit raise your hand, or whether you had a specific question, Gowrie. So Gowrie in Sri Lanka.
Hello, Paul.
Hi.
I raised my hand to ask a question. So when it comes to exporting to other countries in an e-commerce scenario as a retailer, so that is also considered as export, if I'm not wrong. Is it so?
Yeah, if you've got a UK registered business, and you're doing e-commerce to other parts of the world, absolutely, it's export. And we've got a special section on our great.gov.uk portal. Actually, you can put in a product, for example, and a country, and it'll tell you what is the most favoured e-commerce platform in that country. And we've probably got a memorandum of understanding with them.
Okay. In that case, sorry, shipping charges will be the most common challenge. I mean, which I might face in future if I want to expand my business to other part of the world from UK. So, will there be any assistance or any concessions which I will be provided with?
What are your products?
It's a food business, and I wanted to make some spice blends and export to other countries. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have a very active food and drink sector in this country. I've got a couple of colleagues who specialise just in that, and they go to all the big food shows. Obviously, online conferences, but they go to all the big shows in Dubai and Germany and what have you. So yeah, good opportunities. But I think it's for you to work out really, you know, what price will be relevant in that particular country, and building up your price structure, including your freight charges. So
just to help the question a little bit more, because I think we'll all be interested in this. So Gary receives she's got an online presence, and she receives an order for a custom spice blend from 10 different countries. So she's gonna do the blending in the UK in Bradford, and then she's gonna send the spices out. Are there any protocols as to who would pay for the shipping, depending on which market is? And are there any issues such as tariffs or taxes that need to be considered, you know, when you're shipping to one country as opposed to another?
Yeah, well, all of that really. I mean, in terms of who pays for what, it depends what you put in your contract, and that's when we start talking about things like Incoterms. So are you going to ship on an ex-works basis, whereby you have it prepared in this country at your premises and your customer has to arrange collection? You know, are you going to deliver it to the UK port or the UK airport, or are you going to deliver it yourself via DHL or ship it on board ship to somewhere around the world? But you can put whatever you want in your contract. It's up to you to decide where your responsibility starts and finishes, and you'll build your price up to that point. And after that point, it's your buyer's responsibility. And not many people will be doing delivered duty paid. Not many people will be delivering from the UK and including in their price all the duties, the tariffs, the inland haulage in the domestic country. That's relatively unusual. So that would be through your buyer's account. But it depends on which Incoterm you use.
Is that helpful, Gary? Do you have any additional questions to that?
No, this is what I wanted to ask. So that answers my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds to me as though it can be addressed, but it may make sense, Gary, when you start to be having a conversation with Simon, just as to, you know, what standard Incoterms agreements might look like, what should be offered, the various considerations, so that you don't get caught out, you know, having to pay more charges.
The other thing I should say is we are genuinely helping companies like this, you know, fairly startup business, but we've got our Export Academy program, and some of the modules, which are only an hour each, we have a shipping expert talking about how to get your goods overseas. We have a documentation expert. But apart from the Export Academy, we run another series of workshops all about e-commerce. So we've got something for everyone. So if you're interested in any of those things, we can send out the details.
Thanks, Simon. So we've got a question from Hussein's raised his hand, and then we've also had another question coming in from David. So we'll do Hussein first, if that's okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this very interesting masterclass. So I have my question. It's a bit specific about the business I'm doing. So I'm running a social enterprise. It's in BC education. So I do online courses. I'm into the business of online courses. But I'm just wondering about if there is a kind of potential market for online courses in social sciences and things like peace studies and political science and social sciences, because over the summer I've been now for a year, I've been doing lots of courses, and I targeted, for example, some of my courses to the Middle East, and I managed actually to get people enrolled for the courses. However, I had to make it with a very low fees courses. People are not willing to pay a lot of money into social sciences, into peace studies, into things like this. So I'm just to be honest, why you want to say I don't understand the international market for social sciences education. So can you give me your opinion if there is a potential, where what country would it be, and how can I approach international market for online courses for such a thing like peace studies and peace education?
So Phil, did you want to try answering that one? So this is online peace building and peace education. So these are interactive workshops. Again, same problem as yourselves, originally face-to-face here in the Bradford community, now moved to an online offer because of COVID, but of course also attracting some international interest.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for us, it was just a case of trying to do a lot of keyword research to see what people were searching through Google, what the courses that people were interested in would be. And you can also do that by country, so that you can see what kind of volume of people are looking for those type of courses around the world. And then just obviously developing the products and just getting in touch. We just found with the DIT were really useful for that, and they pointed us in the direction of online marketplaces where we could list courses initially at discount sometimes, just to get a feel for the market and get a feel for the interest levels. But yeah, I think it's just a case of trying to figure out the volume, the search volume, and gauge the interest from there, and then build it out around that.
Thanks, Phil. Munir, any thoughts from you at all?
Yeah, I've been mulling that one. So obviously it'd be very easy to say that the core subjects that people want to learn are English, maths, and science, and everything after that is ancillary. But it's not always the case, because again, it's cultural. So I will be going down the again, use the DIT commercial team route, and just ask them the question, these are my courses. Where can I sell them? Which countries are the ones that would be most relevant? Which ones would generate the most interest? And honestly, I don't know, because we don't do those courses. I wish I did, and then I could give you a fantastic answer, but we don't. So if it was me and we were developing these courses, I would use Google. I'd have a look and just type it in, see what comes up, see what organizations are already selling those courses and which countries are they in. That will then give you a bit of a starting point as to which countries are probably the most relevant. Speak to the likes of Simon, etc., and ask the same question, because they can plug you in to this huge global network, and they will be the ones that will give you the information. I'm sorry, but I don't know any more than that for this one.
I think just as a comment from me as well, Hussein, it's about that entrepreneurial mindset, isn't it? So let's take Munir. He spent 20 odd years building an international education business. Now, he knows an awful lot about building an international education business. He may not know very much about peace building, but he's got a core set of skills and the scars to prove it in his particular sector. So you might be saying, okay, well, I could ask for some advice. And Munir, he's a good guy, would give you some advice, and entrepreneurs often help entrepreneurs. But you might also say, you know what, your business needs to diversify, Munir. You wouldn't quite say it like that to him, but what about moving into peace building? And I've got some core products here, and you could basically offer these, and it could be visible under the current brand, or it could be actually under a new brand. Or you could say to Munir, look, I just need that core skill set. So what if you work with me for 6 months, and I buy you a coffee every whatever, or we get together, and the deal is that 10% or 5% of any revenue that comes as a result of your advice, I'll tell you what invoice to raise. So it's just about, there are some real parallels between what you guys are doing, whether there's enough to join forces, whether there's enough to benefit from some ongoing advice. whether there's a transaction and a deal to be had. I'm just trying to help you think it through. I'm not necessarily saying go ahead with this, but I think there's a general message there around, well, you know, what are the commonalities in some of these businesses, and is there anything that you could learn, or any path that you could go down in the same way?
I mean, if you look at what Phil's done, you know, sorry to speak for you, Phil, but you know, you've never sold health and safety courses and business skills courses and health and social care courses. You're TEFL UK, then all of a sudden me and you are talking about a collaborative, you know, partnership of selling these courses. That has to be born from somewhere, and it's just because you're thinking outside the box. Like I thought outside the box with our English language courses that we both work together on as well. So it's the same with the, you know, what Zane's saying. It's not something we've ever done before. Is it something that would interest us and elicit a conversation? I don't know till you have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. You know, and finding training centres internationally who, like you said, have got that portfolio of products, and see if they want to resell them on your behalf. You know, things like that. So obviously, just seeing what's out there and testing the local marketplace. But you know, look at some of the bigger companies that are doing those products and see if you can get your products listed as well.
I'm just going to put in the chat, because it's something just dawned on me. I'm working my way through this. That might help. It's a website, educationagentguide.com. Worth a shot.
Thanks, Munir. Thanks also, David, for your suggestions in the chat box. Hussein, did you have any other comments or questions to ask before we move on?
No, thank you. I'll just take that for now. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Hussein. So, David, you asked a question. Are software businesses inclusive in the opportunities mentioned for UK businesses scaling abroad? So I guess we had the question about e-commerce, but what about software or software as a service? And do the same rules apply, I guess? So Simon, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I can't say software is my particular expertise, but absolutely there are more and more opportunities in doing this. But it's software for what? I mean, I've worked with quite a few software companies, particularly in the education field, who are carving a niche out for themselves in China, South Africa, Malaysia. So it depends on exactly what software you're offering, really.
So David, did you want to just come in with another question there, or perhaps to be a bit more specific?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Simon. So I'm working on a software that it's actually in the circular economy. So we're trying to see how we can help businesses, you know, cater for the reverse logistics. So for packaging, trying to reduce packaging waste. And we actually plan to leverage an existing transportation networks rather than coming up with new transport. And hopefully we plan to scale this beyond the UK. So I don't know if there are opportunities that are available. And I know within the UK, there are a couple of, I've reached out to UK Research and Innovate, and they've shown a level of interest because it's related to climate change. But scaling it out of the UK, that's now the question. How do we get, if not out of Europe, but how do we get other countries in the UK to be a part of what we're trying to build for the future? And so I don't know if there are opportunities available for that. Thank you.
Well, I certainly think if you're doing anything to do with reducing packaging, you're absolutely on message at the moment. So you're talking about software. I work with a company in Sheffield that has got a different packaging method that they've been working on for years, and they've broken through. They've got a lot of success now that does away with pallets. It's all to do with returnable packaging that can be used multiple times. So you've certainly got something there in terms of the space you're operating in.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Simon. And Beulah, thank you for your kind comments as well, if you're still with us. So it's great to know that this has hit the spot for you. Conscious of the time, probably only got another 5 minutes left. So last chance to for anybody really online to ask any additional questions, please feel free to, even the basic ones. I mean, we're very much targeting in this at the people that are taking their first step into an overseas market. So there's no such thing as a daft question. Hopefully I've asked a couple myself already. I'm just going to quickly scan through my own questions in case there was anything that oh yeah, trade deals. Are there any favored markets at the moment? You know, should we be dealing with Australia or
have we paid you to ask this question? It's his favourite question.
No, you haven't, but it was just a lucky strike.
Well, this trust is travelling around the world signing trade deals, and I mean, it is quite an exciting time, actually. And we're talking a lot about, you know, a trade deal with the US or with India. I mean, my personal view, and it is only a personal view, it's a bit off message, that, you know, the bigger the country, the more difficult the deal is going to be. But I mean, one of the ones that's bubbling under at the moment is the CPTPP, which is the transatlantic agreement. And the exciting thing about that is we've already put in our bid to be accepted into the CPTPP, but there's 11 countries in it. So if we get a deal with that organization, you know, we'd immediately have trade deals with Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia and Vietnam, Peru and Mexico, Brunei, so Canada. So I'm really quite excited about that because that represents about 25% of the world. So yeah, I think, you know, there's some really exciting things coming down the track, and you know, I think we just need to take advantage of them when they come along. I know Mia talked about some of our teams around the world that are very busy. I think it wouldn't be surprising for you to know that our team in Australia is just flooded with inquiries at the moment because Australia's in the news every day about, you know, about the deal we've struck with them. But, you know, I think it's partly because of that, but partly because of the circumstances, because people don't have to get on a plane and fly to Australia now. We can get them on a team or a Zoom call with our team in Australia, that, you know, people are suddenly thinking, well, why don't we do business the other side of the world? What's stopping us?
So Simon, what were those letters again?
Yes. C P C for Charlie, P for Percy, TTP. And I think if you could just Google it and it will give you the 11 countries, but it's also called the Transatlantic Partnership.
So the interesting thing is also to for us to reflect how the British government is recognised for the work it does. So if it's putting a lot of resource into a new trade agreement, then there's some responsibility to show that that resource has been well spent. So if you are a company that's looking to export, and particularly if you're able to find perhaps the sort of the lower ranking, if that's the right word, countries on that list, there's going to be a huge appetite locally to demonstrate that this is working. And that for you as a small enterprise is good news, because it means you're more likely to get support, you're more likely to get some traction, and of course the government is keen to scoreboard your business as a successful introduction made. So, you know, remember that your willingness to work internationally is also a currency in a way, and it's a way by which the British government itself is able to demonstrate that it's doing great work overseas and justify its own activities to its stakeholders and beyond that to taxpayers. So, you know, it isn't a bad thing being a small company in this game. You just got to be smart. You've got to network. You've got to know that there's help out there, and believe that people are willing to provide that help, because as you'll have seen from tonight's session, they most certainly are, you know, at a practical level as entrepreneurs, but also as our government and its willingness really to promote the UK brand overseas. So without any further questions, I'm going to draw the session to a close, but I'm just going to ask for one final word of wisdom from each of our panelists. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but if you're thinking about exporting for the first time, Munir, what would your advice be?
Just do it. Seriously, just get on with it and do it. Because if you don't try, you'll never know. We got our first deal in 2007. We're a recruitment company on an industrial estate in Wakefield, and I got an email from a company in New York wanting salespeople, which we converted, and we're still doing it today. So if we can do it, you can. End of.
That's it.
Good advice.
Phil, what about you?
Yeah, so I think it's just people are, generally helpful and they're generally motivated and interested in your business. And we've actually found remarkably that exporting has been easier. It's been easier to deal with countries, different parts of the world than it has sometimes with UK businesses. We found people really receptive and really willing to help. So I think, it might seem daunting, but actually it's not. It's not. Once you get going and once you get a relationship built, it's great. And it's a great fun as well to meet people from all over the world. So yeah, I would say exactly what Munir said. Just do it, go for it, don't look back.
Thank you, Phil. And last but by no means least, Simon, any final comments from you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the question we get frequently asked is, is this a good time to start exporting? And the honest answer is there's never been a better time. And the reason for that is that lockdown has made not just us here, but people around the world who might not have wanted to go on Zoom or Teams, willing to do that and willing to conduct meetings and build relationships and even sign contracts over the internet. And it saves you a lot of time having to travel around the world. It saves you an awful lot of cost. Everything we do is either free of charge, or to come on a virtual mission with us, we might charge you £50, but guarantee you some meetings. So now has been a fantastic time to start.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to our panelists, to Simon, Munir and Phil, for sparing an hour with us, 2 hours with us today. Thank you for those of you that have stuck it to the end as well. I noticed the numbers were over 30 at one point, so it's been a very successful session. Thanks to Faye and to Chun as well for organising. And please do get in touch with us if you've got any questions. We're more than happy to signpost you to our presenters tonight or to anybody else that can help. But for now, thanks again. See you at the next masterclass. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye-bye now. Thanks, Faye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.